This is a clip from the Garbage Time Podcast. To listen to the full show, click the links to our Apple Podcast or Spotify below. Overall, what team was the biggest winner of round one? Who had the best round one?
That's a little bit difficult to say because I didn't think there was anything that really jumped out in round one. I thought the 49ers did a great job, but I'll say the Arizona Cardinals. I'll stay in the NFC West. I think they filled the exact role that they needed to fill. They added one of the best players, I think, in this draft in Isaiah Simmons. I think he's the perfect new defender for the modern NFL. He's going to be that hybrid type of guy like a Derwin James is, and he's going to be able to play anywhere on the field at any given time. And I think that for the Cardinals, adding a guy like that is really what you want in a draft. A guy that can probably play right away, a guy that can be a difference maker right away, and start to really lift up the Arizona defense when Arizona's been focused on offense a lot, but their defense is sneakily getting better and better, and they continue to add bits and pieces, and I think Isaiah Simmons might be the leader of that defense for years to come.
Arizona's going to be a good team next year. I think that team is really on the come up, and we'll see what Cliff Kingsbury has as a coach. But, Scott, I kind of want to go with a couple of teams. I think the rich got richer last night. You look at the best teams in the league right now. We'll start with the Chiefs. They got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is a fantastic running back. He had some really, really standout games against Alabama and against Clemson. He made some, throughout that run that LSU went on last year, he was certainly a standout player with Joe Burrow. And now he's walking into just an amazing situation with Patrick Mahomes, a very similar situation. And I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be really good. Another team, Patrick Queen, a linebacker that a lot of teams really like, the Ravens snatched him up. The 49ers were really playing mind games with the rest of the league last night. They were trading picks left and right. And they ended up with two of their favorite guys, according to, what some people say. Brandon Ayuk apparently was their favorite wide receiver on the board. And then they got Javon Kinlaw. So they're kind of keeping up that identity that they have with Kinlaw of being a great front seven team. And then if I wanted to say another winner, I will say that CeeDee Lamb, I wanted him on the Dolphins. He's going to be fantastic on the Cowboys. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. They're just going to be absolutely phenomenal. And while the Cowboys, I don't think are that rich right now, I don't think they're that great of a team. They didn't make the playoffs last year. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be a really good pickup for them.
I was extremely disappointed that the Eagles did not make the move up to go grab CeeDee Lamb, but we'll get into that later. For now, my biggest winner of this draft, like Ryan said, the 49ers. He hit on those points there. They get Kinlaw, they get Ayuk, both great prospects who are going to fit in great with what they do. I think the 49ers, I don't think you can really argue that the team had a more successful first round than them. They just made the Super Bowl last year, and they got two top guys that they really wanted in the first round of the draft. They only got better. This is going to work out great for them. My second team that I think had a really underratedly good first round was the Minnesota Vikings because they were able to hang at their pick. They didn't have to move up, and they got a wide receiver that they wanted, and I actually pegged that he should go to the Vikings and he would succeed a lot there, in Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson doesn't have the ceiling of a CeeDee Lamb or an Ayuk or a Ruggs or those guys, but I think he was probably the safest wide receiver pick in this draft. He's a great route runner. He's very versatile. He can go any wide receiver slot on the field. He showed last season at LSU that he really flourishes in an offense that has a great system where they throw the ball around. He's going to fit in really well in Minnesota, and I think ultimately become their new wide receiver one with the absence of Stephon Diggs. So I think the Vikings had a really underratedly nice first round with that Justin Jefferson pick.
They basically traded Stephon Diggs for Justin Jefferson since they got that Bills first round pick. So maybe there was something going on internally with Stephon Diggs, but I think that's most people would lean Diggs as the better player than Jefferson, but we'll see what Jefferson ends up. Can I add one? I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have had the best offseason in the entire NFL, and last night they made a quiet pick, Tristan Wirfs, number 13, a guy that fell a little bit, a guy that was
kind of a steal there.
Yeah, a little bit of a steal at 13. The guy, they showed his power cleaning ability. He broke all sorts of weightlifting records at Iowa. He's a monster, and he's going to be protecting Tom Brady next year, and that offense is going to be dynamic.
Yes, Milano.
Can I go into that 49ers Buccaneers trade a tiny bit? I did it a little bit in my draft reaction. I thought it was spectacular what both Tampa Bay and San Francisco did. At the start of the draft, San Francisco leaked information that they weren't 100% all in on Joe Staley, and I think that was precisely to, if there was one of those top 4 offensive linemen on the board of that 13th pick, they knew that Tampa Bay wanted a lineman to protect Tom Brady. They did it perfectly. You mentioned Sean playing mind games with the rest of the teams. They did it so spectacularly to bait Tampa Bay into trading up 1 pick so that San Francisco could get the same guy that they would want anyways at 14. It worked for Tampa Bay because they needed that offensive lineman, but San Francisco and John Lynch have done an amazing job. It feels like they're just toying and taking candy from the baby here. It feels like they're superior. I don't want to toot the 49ers horn because I am a 49ers fan, but I was blown away by how well they maneuvered in this draft and how well they manipulated other teams into doing exactly what they wanted them to.
They did a good job, but I will say that I was thinking throughout the draft, like, oh boy, the Niners are about to get Judy or CeeDee Lamb, 2 of the best receivers in this draft and 2 maybe great receivers in this league for a long time. But they passed on those guys, and I think if those guys pan out the way people think they will, it's going to be a pretty big loss for the Niners.
All right, so let's shift to the opposite end of the spectrum. The team with the worst night in the first round. I'll start on this one because this one, unfortunately, hits so close to home for me. I have to say the Philadelphia Eagles. I slept on this thing, and I woke up just feeling so salty that they passed on the guys they did. They had the opportunity to go get CeeDee Lamb, trade up in the draft. They had the opportunity to draft other wide receivers who I think are much better prospects than Jalen Reagor. And I'm not saying Jalen Reagor's not going to be a good wide receiver in this league. He very well could be. He's got speed. He's got quickness, versatility. He's got the tools. But just on paper, and for an Eagles team that is trying to win right now, today, win a Super Bowl this season, Reagor just seems like one of the least ready guys to go plug into your offense and win big games. The Eagles did not sign or trade for a big-name wide receiver this offseason when they had the opportunity to, justifying it by saying that they wanted a young guy for Carson to go mesh with, and that young guy happens to be a 5'10 guy who's going to play in the slot and run streak routes his whole career. I just don't think that's the number one wide receiver that Carson needs and has lacked his whole career. Like I said, Reagor could end up being a great player, and I sure hope he does. I'll be rooting for him. But on paper, this was just not the guy to take. He's the least NFL ready of the first-round receivers, and he is going to have so much pressure on him, and he will be compared to Judy, Ruggs, Jefferson, Lamb, his whole entire career now. And in Philadelphia, I just don't know that Jalen Reagor is ready for that.
And Big 12 guys have struggled a little bit in the past. I mean, notably, the last TCU receiver that I remember being a big draft pick was Josh Doxson, and that guy fell off the face of the earth. And so we'll see what happens with Reagor. I mentioned the Lions, how I didn't love what they did. I think they could have moved back and still gotten Okudah, and I think it's silly for them to trade away Darius Slay and then just get like a younger version of him, who will take a little bit of time. Slay wanted out, but Okudah, they got the same exact position, and we're talking about a 5-win team here, and I don't think they got too much better last night. I didn't think the Jaguars made a lot of noise last night, considering they had 2 picks. They got Henderson and they got Kason from LSU. I think they could have done more with those 2 picks. And then the team I wanted to bring up was the Raiders. I think they kind of had a weird night as well. They had 2 picks. They could have gotten any receiver they wanted. They ended up going with Ruggs, which, if you have a Patrick Mahomes, Ruggs is great. You look at Tyreek Hill, it's fantastic. But if you have Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota, 2 receivers that are a little more limited, I think you go with a Judy. You go with a safer pick. You don't go with the guy that will catch home run balls for you. So I think Ruggs is a weird pick.
I disagree on that one, Sean, only because of the fit. Now, I ranked all the wide receivers in this draft in a video on our channel just a couple days ago, and I actually had Ruggs as my second best receiver in this draft. I think he's going to be great, and I think we're kind of going towards that Tyreek Hill, Hollywood Brown archetype of receiver in today's NFL. But that said, the Raiders, I think, actually nailed this pick at number 12. He fits into what John Gruden and Mike Mayock are building, and that's speedy, athletic guys who will buy into their system. And any guy coming from Alabama knows what it takes to buy into a system and what they have to do, and know how to be a little bit selfless. So I really like this pick for the Raiders, but at the same time, if it was a team like the Broncos, I wouldn't like it because he doesn't fit into what you want to do, and Jeudy might be a better long-term option for a team like that. But for the Raiders, I actually really love that pick.
Yeah, well, Sean, Scott and I might disagree with you on the Raiders point. We both like those picks that they made. I do agree with you on the Jaguars point. I hate what the Jacksonville Jaguars did in this draft. I think it was absolutely terrible. The Jaguars organization is the worst in football, in my opinion.
Second worst.
I'm not conceding that point, Scott. The Jaguars are the worst organization in football.
Cowboys.
Not even going there with those teams. They don't come anywhere near the Jacksonville Jaguars. First, they were baited into taking C.J. Henderson, who before the draft was somewhere near a mid-first rounder. Only about a week ago was he starting to move up of draft boards, and they took the bait on him. They bought it hook, line, and sinker, and they are going to get burned by C.J. Henderson, a guy that I don't think is that good. And then Caleb Von Chasen is also way too small as a pass rusher, and I don't think that it was the position of need that they were going for. They drafted a pass rusher last year in Josh Allen. They have another one in Yannick Ngakoue who wants out and who they presumably wants out, but they haven't traded him yet, and they continue to not trade him, and his trade value is just getting lower and lower to the point where I'm not even convinced that they will get rid of him. And even then, they brought in Cassius Marsh as well, who plays that same position. There's so many holes on this Jaguars team. They could have addressed anything, and defensive edge was the absolute last position that they needed. And Caleb Von Chasen, I don't think was the pick there.
I'm going to disagree with you here, Ryan, and I'm going to use one of your previous takes against you here. You said that Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals was a great pick because he is a guy who can play multiple positions on the defensive front and linebacker and safety, and guard people, rush the passer, stop the run.
I don't think Caleb Von Chasen's that guy.
I think Caleb Von Chasen can, and I think you should just watch. That being said, it really wasn't a huge need for the Jaguars, but I think Caleb Von Chasen is going to be a very good player in this league. And if you were right about this kind of new rover position starting up, I think Caleb Von Chasen is going to be one of the poster boys for that.
I disagree. I think that Caleb Von Chasen is an undersized edge rusher. I don't think he has the skills to play linebacker. I don't think he has the skills to play safety. I think that he is an edge rusher through and through. He can't slip inside to the defensive tackle position or a 3-4 defensive end because he's too small. He's a 4-3 defensive end in any scheme, and I just don't think it will work in Jacksonville. He fits the scheme, but they have so many defensive ends there already. It was the last position of need. They could have taken wide receiver. They could have taken quarterback. They could have got offensive line. They could have got a second member of the secondary, all of which I thought would have been way better picks than Caleb Von Chasen there.
Yeah, get Gardner Minshew some weapons. I mean, they could have gotten really – I don't think CeeDee Lamb was on the board by the time they took Chasen, but maybe with their first pick they could have gone with Jeudy. The second pick they could have gotten – Ayuk or one of those guys. One thing that the
Jaguars have done somewhat well in these past 5-6 years and their total dysfunction that they've been in is draft late round wide receivers well. That is one thing that I have to give them a little bit of credit for. Alan Hearns, who was the other guy that played with Alan Hearns for years?
Allen Robinson.
They know how to get late round wide receivers, so maybe they can make something work there. But the Jaguars are an absolute mess.